Hello friends, welcome to Squared Plans. I'm Stephanie and today we're going to be doing a flip through of my faith bullet journal / planner for the first half of 2022. So I'll just be going through the first half of the year, show you guys what I did in my faith planner, and maybe give you guys some ideas for your own faith planner / bullet journal. So if that sounds good, let's jump in. First off, I have this cover and these discs. If you were wondering about those, they are from a faith planner that I got on clearance, and I took out the guts of that faith planner and just used the cover and the discs. I do have a setup video for all of the planners for 2022 where I show you guys my lineup and how I kind of combine different elements to create my own planners for the year. So if you want that, I'll go ahead and link that in the description below so you guys have access to it, quick access, as well as maybe put it here in the cards as well, so you can just click on it if you want to see more about the setup of this planner. But this one was pretty simple because it was a bullet journal style, so I just used some dot grid paper intermixed with some dividers and these discs in this cover. Originally I had all of the months in here divided out with dividers like so. And I'll show you guys. These came out of this planner that I actually am using the cover for. But what I decided to do, because of the way I designed each month, was to just remove the dividers and save them for another planner in the future, since I don't really need them and I didn't have a way to kind of like glue up the pages to the dividers to kind of make it all one planner at this time. So we're just going to remove the dividers throughout the end of the year. Let's get started with the first month, which was January. So this is my first year ever planning in a bullet journal style. I decided to do it in my faith planner because I thought it would be the easiest one to really get creative with, and also kind of foresee what I needed to do each month. Because each time I kind of modify some of my other planners and change things up. So this one stays pretty consistent, and I like that I could, pre-plan and figure out what I wanted to do for each month. Each month has a theme, and I decided to use this black washi tape throughout the entire year that I was going to be planning in this planner. I will say I have decided to take a break for the months of July and now into August, but I may pick it back up once things get a little less busy for me. So I haven't ruled out doing more months up until the end of the year, but for now I'm just taking a break. And so we're going to see the very first 6 months of the year. The style or the theme that I decided for the month was like the snowflake theme, which I remember getting the idea from Amanda Rach Lee. Like I said, this was my first year doing any kind of bullet journaling in a planner of any kind, so I just really wanted to get some ideas on something that was simple, that I could draw pretty easily. Didn't take a lot of effort because I wanted to get the feel for how this was going to go, and the snowflakes worked out pretty well. There was a lot of drawing, but they were really simple elements and easy to produce. So for the cover, what I decided to do was just have a month layout with the black tape, like I mentioned, and I use a white opaque pen on top of it. I like my Sakura Jelly Roll pen for that. And then I grab a verse out of the Bible that I kind of feel like is going to be the theme for the month. And then I did a little brush pen work with the color scheme that I'm working with and wrote it in as the cover page. So for the next spread in the month, what I like to do is have a prayer list on one side, and then this is kind of a up for grabs page. But for the beginning of the year, what I decided to do was a daily gratitude. So just had a few lines to write down something I was thankful for each day. And then back over here on the prayer list, I like to divide up my prayer list into categories so I can know who I'm praying for, and just kind of reminds me to pray for people that I may not think to pray for, as well as some things for myself. This was something that I really didn't focus on much in previous years, And so I started adding that in, and it's really helped me kind of center in on what I need to pray for myself, for people outside my sphere of influence, friends, and my family. So this was the spread here that comes next in the month. And you'll see that the setup is very consistent as we go through the months. So you'll see this again, time and time again, as we go through. This was the very first week in this planner, and I really didn't know what I wanted to do. The idea I had for this was to include a daily summary of what I read in the Bible, because I have a daily reading that I get from an app called YouVersion Bible app. And I mention this whenever I talk about my faith planner. So that's what I use. It's all on my phone. It's also where I get the verse of the day, which is what I have lettered in next to each of the little summaries. And I just use that on my phone pretty much regularly for anything that's Bible related. It's a really great app, very easy to use, and has a lot of predetermined things in there, like the verse of the day and the daily reading that I use. It's a plan that I use that reads through the Bible in a year, and I switch it up every year, but the plan basically goes through the Bible in different ways each year. So this year I'm doing one that is a little bit in the Old Testament, a little bit in the New. Sometimes there's a psalm, and I keep track of that, which you'll see later at the back of each month, what I've read. Like I said, I really wanted to do a little bit more in this planner starting at the beginning of the year, so I started adding in these summaries, and that was going okay, but things were getting a little bit crazy busy, as you can see on the spreads. I usually would set up the entire theme in one video, so I would have the first pages you saw already and this very first week, and then I would leave it open behind for the next weeks for me to change it up and kind of figure out what was working and what wasn't. Horizontal doesn't really work for me as well, so I decided to change it up in the next week, which you're going to see here in a second. And like I said, it was my first time, so all of last year I used a quadrant layout from my shop for my faith planning, and I just focused in on the lettering side of things, lettering out the verse of the day. So I went back to that familiar layout early on because I was just not comfortable with the horizontal one I had done earlier, and went back to that. It worked out a little bit better, but it was a little bit hard to judge how much room I should save on each one for the summary versus the lettering. So again, kind of tight, and took a little bit more time than I was originally planning for. I do continue this, but I decide to make a change in a month or two, which you'll see. This is how the second week turned out. And here is the third week. This one here, I changed it up. I decided to put the summaries all in a column here in a predetermined size, so I wouldn't have to worry about that. And then that gave me a lot more room to get creative with my lettering in these boxed areas. And for the layouts, I really just kind of looked around, saw what might work, and then I also just tried things that came to mind that I thought might fit in with what I wanted to do. So I did get inspiration outside of, myself, but sometimes I did come up with things on my own. And I believe this one I kind of maybe grabbed some inspiration, but then modified it for my own use, and it worked out pretty well. I thought this was a really good layout, I remember, from that month. And then here, again, I really liked having the summary separated from the lettering, so I did it across the bottom, again in a predetermined almost format. And then I decided I really wanted to get a little bit more fun using these circles as a way to compartmentalize my lettering. And overall, I think that was a really fun one. It left a lot of white space around, which was good. A little harder to letter inside of a circular format, but I still enjoyed it, and it kind of pushed me to be a little more creative in certain things. And then, yeah, like I said, the summaries down here I just kind of condensed down into these spaces, and that worked out well. So each week I was drawing in the full layout. So I'd draw in the theme, decor, as well as the way I was going to lay it out before the week began. And then each day I would fill them out one by one. I like to use a specific kind of pen. I have these Arteza Twi markers, which are really cool because they have a brush tip on one side, and it's a really small brush, but it is a brush tip, so it gives you a little bit more, absorption for swashes of color. It's not great for brush lettering, I will say. I did buy the set with the hopes that I could actually brush letter with these tips, but they're very soft and the bristles spread pretty easily, so not great for having real exact brush lettering. But then it has another tip here on the other side, which I really do love for lettering. It's a really nice fine tip, and you can use that to actually write things in the color. I don't have much of an example here on this page. Let's see if I did any on the other pages. Here's an example. So here I used it to actually letter in some text here on Wednesday here and on Sunday. But again, it's just a really good, it's a really good pen set. I got a set of 100, so you can basically match up any colors you want to your theme. And you have the ability to do, like I said, the swashes of color and the lettering, writing styles, mostly like monoline lettering with the other tip. So this is a really good pen set. I will link it down below, as well as the tape that I use, this black washi tape, which is very frequently used on these spreads. A couple more pens I'll mention right now before we finish out this month is the Pigma Micron pen. So this one here I use for pretty much any of the fine lettering in black. I do have an Arteza Twi marker that would work just as well, but because I only had one of those and I use a lot of black in my spreads, I decided to get a supplemental black pen that I could use regularly, and then that way I always had the ability to replace it pretty easily. I like the Pigma Micron in the 03 size for the lettering. It's a nice fine line, and you can also, use it for other things, for drawing, and I believe I might have used it for drawing the snowflakes on the sky as well. One thing that's really great about the Micron is that it doesn't bleed, so once you kind of put it on the page, give it a second, it sets, so when you are drawing over it, it doesn't really pick up other inks very easily. So it's a really nice pen to use for doing things where you're layering color, and again, that fine tip. And last but not least, I have my Tombow Furunosuke pen, which I use pretty much for all the brush lettering in here. It's a really nice pen for beginner letterers. I use the hard tip, and it really gives you a lot of control with your thick and thin strokes, as well as just has a really nice small brush tip, which is great for smaller brush lettering, which you can kind of see here, kind of planner sized brush lettering versus maybe like a Tombow dual tip, which is much easier to control in a bigger environment where you're drawing very large words or things like that. So the Furunosuke is really great for smaller brush lettering. Okay, so that's a majority of the tools that I used to draw out everything. Of course, I used the pencil to kind of set up certain things that I'm not a very confident penner, so I always pencil in things before I commit them with ink. That is the basic setup for each month. So finally, I have this last page of the month. So this is the back page, which you'll see consistently throughout the year. And it's what I read this month. So back to that YouVersion Bible app I mentioned, I do that Bible reading every day. And then this was just a way for me to track which verses I had read each day, which passages, and kind of see just how I was progressing. Mainly, this was just something new to me. I just thought it would be nice to kind of see it all in one place and get a feel for where I was in the Bible in the month that I was actually, looking at here. So it's really good. little setup, just like a monthly layout, but you could definitely use this for other things like in a monthly format. So it gives you some ideas for how to do a single page month in a bullet journal as well, if that's not really what you want to track on a monthly. So that's January, and like I said, I kept everything very consistent throughout the months. You know, changed up the theme each month, but had this black tape and the white writing over it to kind of ground everything as one planner. So next we're getting into February, and for February I tried some stamping. I'm not a very good stamper. I also am very, I don't know, fresh. I'm very new to it, so I don't know much about like inks and stuff. I've been learning this year about different things, but I had bought some ink on clearance at Michael's, a couple of years ago. I think this is still soft. And it was like an ombre ink pad, which I really loved. It was like, it went from pink to this like orange tone. I thought it'd be really cute with some Cocoa Daisy stamps that I had recently got, and tried some stamping. That ink is very hard to dry. I mean, I can even see, it feels like it's even still wet to this day. And of course I did this back at the end of January. It's crazy. So, you know, you gotta learn about different inks and what's good quality and all that good stuff. But this was my first time and I had fun with it. I kind of made a little collage of florals that I thought I would just use with that ink pad and make that the color scheme. Very simple. Instead of trying to draw all of the snowflakes like I did last month, this month I thought stamping would be faster. It was, but then, like I said, I had some challenges along the way, which made it a little bit more interesting, but still, it was a good learning experience. Again, I have my verse for the month here and just brought in a little bit of the color that I used for the month as well. So here is the first spread for this month. Again, the prayer list, and I decided to do the daily gratitude once again. You can see that the stamping did not go well on this page, but again, a learning experience. Still love the colors and just tried a few different formats with how I laid out the page. Still categorizing my prayer list, and then I did this daily gratitude, just kind of a little bit more condensed version on this one, but still the same kind of theme. And here is the first week of February. Decided to go back to that boxed out with the summary on the side spread idea. I really felt like that one was a good one. So I did it again here on this very first week. Added a little bit more of the stamping in here, but again, just very subtle because I was getting very nervous about stamping anymore once I had such a kind of mess on my hands with these ones. So this is how it turned out. I picked out 2 colors from those Twi markers for this month. I tried to match it up as best I could with the ink stamps that I had there, the color scheme. I feel like the coral was very close. The pink was a little bit off, but that's okay. I wanted it to be bold enough that I could write in it and you can see it, versus, you know, being too light and then you wouldn't be able to actually read the text that I used the pen for. So I stuck with the orange tone for more of the structural things and the pink for the other color that I was going to be using for my lettering, and that worked out pretty well. So for this month, I kind of did a reverse of what I had in January, where I had it at the bottom with the summary. So I put those at the top, and then I decided to go with those boxes again. This one looked pretty good. I thought it really filled the page well and had a good overall look and feel. For the lettering, like I said, I use that app again to get the verse of the day, and it just feeds it into the app. And I just take that and I try to interpret that onto the page. It's, you know, it just depends on which day, how I'm feeling, how creative I'm feeling, and there's some samples, or at least there used to be some samples in there with the imagery in the app so that you can kind of maybe get an idea how you might want to lay out the verse. So that's what I basically do, and add in doodles here and there, but I keep it pretty simple. Try to interpret the verse the best that I can. in a shorter amount of time. Part of the reason why I'm taking a break from my faith planner is because it was taking a bit too much of my time in the morning. So now that I'm like super busy, I want to pull back a little bit on that. But once things calm down a little bit more as we get into the fall, I should be able to pick it back up. Anyways, this is how I think the second week of February turned out. For the third week, I did something completely different. I went back to almost like a horizontal, but this time I sectioned off the summaries onto the sides and then kind of did like a 1/3, 2/3 situation with the lettering in the 2/3 area. That worked out really good. You can see each week as I stamped, some were better and some were worse, but I think overall that, the consistency throughout the month turned out pretty good. And horizontal, spaces are not my favorite for lettering, but, depending on how it's laid out, I can get some cute styling going, depending on the verse and what I have to work with. So that was the next week in February. And I think this is the last week here in February where I went back to my familiar quadrant style layout and just kind of sectioned off again the summary for the day to kind of help me know how much room to work with for each. And that worked out okay. I felt like I didn't have as much room for the summary, which was, so sometimes I got some really tiny fonts text trying to write it in. But overall, it was nice to have a full block here on top for the lettering for the most part. And again, that monthly layout, what I read in a month, took off the boxed out area and just kind of defined it by the box here. And that turned out, I thought, a little bit better, a little bit cleaner of a look. And again, more stamping. That's February. Let's go ahead and jump into March. For March, I decided to do a rainbow theme. I thought this was going to be easier than it was, but it was a fun one. I just basically drew some rainbow styles with, I believe these ones were Tombow pens, and then Tombow dual brush pens for all of the decor in this. I added in a verse. I remember this might have been the first month I really tied the theme to the verse. So I knew I wanted to do a rainbow. Rainbows are mentioned in the Bible, so I went and searched for a verse that I thought was a good match for that. And then added in this dot pattern with the kind of fine liner tip of the Tombow dual brush pens. So here is the spread, the spread I'm going to call it, at the beginning of the month. Again, prayer list, you'll see that doesn't really change. I always categorize my prayer lists, and this month I decided to do kind of like a little circular theme again here on the prayer list, and you'll see that as we go through as well. Again, a rainbow here. And then for this one, what I decided to do was to remove the summaries from the daily pages from the week and just do a one sentence summary of what I could take away from the day's reading here, and I just called that today's takeaway. That worked out pretty good because then it gave me more room to go back to my original full lettering style, and also still had me kind of think critically about what I read and get something that I could apply to my life each day from what I had read. So this was really good. Again, kind of continued with that rainbow theme here and went through the whole month with this color scheme. So this was the first week. I ended up doing this spread again near the end because I kind of messed up the the lines. I had done on camera when I set up this very first week, I had done all the colors up to purple, and then on the other side I had only done to blue. So I kept one side and then grabbed that other page and put it farther back so that I could match up the rainbow later in the week or later in the month. And that worked out good. Again, I was trying to keep things fairly simple for myself. I didn't want to do a lot of drawing, spend a lot of time setting up spreads. So I did try that circular theme, kind of more rough brush versus like real exact, and I think that worked well. I also decided to do a Monday through Sunday color scheme with red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, and then I used gray for Sunday since that was the last color I had. And I sought out the twine markers in each of those colors. So these were the Tombow dual brush pens like this that I used for all of the setup of the rainbows, but then for the lettering I matched them up with the Arteza twine markers so that I could use that for the fine line stuff over here. So this one was okay, by the way. I wasn't really in love with this spread, but of course I had to do it again because of the mistake I'd made. So you will see it again, even though it was not my favorite. So for this one, I kept going with that kind of more sketchy look with the drawing in of the structural items and then the rainbows, but I went back to more of a kind of squared out option here. And since I didn't need the space for the summaries here, I decided to put a little bit more decor. And this is how it turned out. Again, back to my quadrant. Whenever I was feeling like uninspired, I just went back to the quadrant layout, which I, again, did all last year and was very familiar with. And this one turned out, I thought, really good because I used those colors of the rainbow throughout, and really I kind of felt like each color popped on each day. And then I had my rainbow design here to kind of tie it all together. A very simple but really clean look, and I really liked some of the lettering I ended up doing in here. This one in particular, I think I got inspiration from one of the app's kind of sample squares of the verse. So it was really nice to try something a little bit different and see how I did with that. So here is the layout that I had to repeat, even though I didn't really like it. As you can see, there's the purple in there, and I just wanted to make sure that I was getting use out of the page I had already set up. Again, not my favorite, but I did try to make it work, and yeah, this is how it turned out. And this is the last spread of the month, basically the hybrid week between March and April. And I did something very similar with the quadrant, but kind of gave myself a little more space here in the center for a kind of rough looking brush lettering area. And then I boxed out each of the days. It turned out pretty good, but not 100% either. I mean, it was all right. Some of the lettering is better than the others too, so that always helps make a spread good or bad. But it's good to keep practicing, so I do want to keep this up. Hopefully can pick it up at the end of the year. So here's what I had at the end of the month, and as you can see, very similar to the months that I had previously. I decided to box out the days on this one and then color code each of the weeks just to bring in more of the rainbow feels. But yeah, pretty consistent throughout. And I do like to mark if I miss a reading, you know, when I did the catch-up day. So you might see that notated in some of these as well. Okay, so now we're on to April, and for April what I decided to do was a rain theme, kind of cloudy rain theme, because you know, April showers. And so of course I looked up some Bible verses to kind of tie that in, and I found a pretty good one here. I also used my Tombow pen to kind of create the color scheme, and also I used the tip. This is a little idea I got from, I think, Twinkle Plans Her Day, Christine, over there on Instagram, Twinkle Plans Her Day. And you basically just tap the brush pen down to make the like raindrop look. I've done that in a couple of spreads in the past, and I thought it would be nice to do that here. kind of make some easy, simple rain, and then the clouds. I always liked drawing fluffy clouds when I was a kid, so that one came pretty easily to me. And just a little bit of shadowing with a matching color to bring in a little bit of pop, since the colors I was using were pretty kind of subtle and not very vibrant for the rain. So the spread this month has my prayer list, and this time I decided to do clouds, which I thought turned out really cute. I also added in a little prayer element here at the bottom, or not prayer, scripture element here at the bottom for decor. And then I did the takeaway again here for this month, and I think this was the last week, or the last month I did the takeaway style thing, and then I changed it up for the next month, which you'll see. But again, kind of kept those color schemes going with the kind of soft purple and the almost like a grapey pink tone. So here was the first spread that I did on camera, and I tried some horizontal again. I kept trying the horizontal because I wanted to see if it would fit any better. It did not. I mean, as far as working with it with my lettering style, I just really didn't feel as comfortable in the horizontal. I just kept trying it, but sometimes you got to try things to know it doesn't work for you. Some of these came out better than others, but overall I think that the shadowing of the boxes and everything turned out pretty good. I really wanted to try that out, so that's a pretty popular bullet journaling style thing, and yeah, I liked that idea a lot. Did another horizontal. I don't know why I kept trying to force myself to do it more horizontally, although this one gave me a little bit more space, kind of going back to that one that was like 1/3, 2/3, which wasn't so bad. You know, it's when it gets extra long that it gets really challenging, but if it's a little bit more square, a lot of times I can make that work better. So this is how that week turned out, and again, I just basically would draw the spreads just before the week began and then work in them for the week as I went. So here is the next week, and this one again kind of harkened back to the quadrant style, but I really want to bring in those like shadowed boxes. So I don't know if you guys can see this on camera, but the ink that I used for the boxes was not the Micron, the Pigma Micron pen. It was just some random felt tip pen. I think it was actually the Arteza one. This one here. And although I like it, this is the Arteza Inconic, it does pick up color really easily. So I liked that the line was bolder and, you know, a little bit easier to draw. However, like I said, I learned that it does pick up the color that you lay over it. So decided not to really use that as much in future spreads because of that. This is how the week turned out. This one, I really wanted to try a cloud only theme, which was challenging, but I think overall really fun to try to work into. Kind of like when I was working into the circles, you know, just it made my brain have to think a little bit harder. I don't necessarily think that the overall look of the verses was all that great, but again, just kind of pushed me to be a little bit more creative and see how I can make things work in the spread. So I decided to do that kind of boxed in monthly layout again, and I liked this one a lot. I thought this one turned out really good with the clouds at the top and the rain coming down into it with that pop of color. So that's April. We're moving into May. So for May, I decided to do a floral theme. Again, I really didn't want to spend a lot of time drawing intricate flowers, so I just came up with the easiest way I could think of to make flowers, which was basically just drawing little V shapes and W shapes with a brush pen and then drawing stems down. I did use a little bit of a watercolor brush pen hybrid idea to kind of soften the grass areas for this, and again picked out a verse that matched up with the theme, but really kept it very simple. although I really liked how simple the theme was, one thing I would do differently would be to change whether I added this green, so either do like pink and green or orange and green, or don't put in a new color of green and maybe do like something else. Because as you'll see, the color scheme started to get a little bit busy. I worked around it later, but yeah. 3 colors is pretty much the max, and because there was black too, it just started to get a little bit too like colorful, in my opinion. For the spread, again, prayer list and categories, which I kept nice and clean and simple here. Did kind of like a handwriting header idea throughout, which you'll see repeated over the different spreads. I also decided to do for this page something new. I did a spiritual self-care. So what I did is I found actually 2 different like 30-day challenges where they go over, you know, things that you can do for your own self-care, and then there was one that was more like spiritual based, but I didn't like everything from either of them, so I kind of blended them together and made my own master list. What I did is I penciled it in, so you can see there's a few days that are still penciled in here, and then I numbered them, but because I didn't necessarily repeat or complete the task on the day that I have it marked, I basically said, you know, I completed something on the 1st, the 2nd, the 4th, I went down, and then when I completed that thing, I would pin it in. So the things that are not pinned in are things I didn't get to, and the days that are marked are the days that I actually completed a self-care challenge thing, if that makes sense. That's how I did it. There's probably an easier way, like maybe I could have just left it unnumbered, but I wanted to make sure I had one for every day, and then I was, you know, being mindful to try to tackle one of these things each day as I went, the best that I could. So that's how I went overall. This was a good one, I thought, just to kind of get myself thinking about, you know, things taking care of myself and spiritually taking care of myself at the same time, if you know what I mean. So yes, that's a new idea for this side of the spread. So next we have the first layout of the month, and this one sort of like the quadrant, but a little bit more condensed, leaving some white space here at the top and the bottom, which I liked a lot. I did bring in the green, but I brought in the green only on the kind of structural elements, and then went back and forth between the orange and the pink for the lettering. So I just basically chose a color each day, so it didn't get too colorful. With the green, I felt like it was a bit colorful, as you can see, but overall I really liked how this one turned out. And then this one, again, was very similar to the quadrant layout, but I kind of staggered the boxes a bit and changed things up where things were placed. This one had, I thought, too much green, which is why it really felt overwhelming to me. Not enough white space, but again, I did have fun with the lettering for the week and thought it turned out pretty good as far as each of the days individually. Again, I really like having more vertical space for lettering. It just tends to work out better in the end for me, and that's how the week turned out. So for this one, I decided to kind of go back away from the green and only let it be in the decor area. The actual layout was a little bit awkward. I thought it'd be kind of cool to bring in like this triangle, you know, angular element to it, sticking with mostly the black as the structural stuff. Kind of created this empty, weird space here in this corner, which I don't know, I'm not in love with that. And then I also had originally started with pen to kind of like pin in the triangles, but it got really, I don't know, out of hand really fast. So I went back through and just used that washi tape to bring in the black, and that worked out a lot better, a lot cleaner. And so I learned a few things there as well on this one. Had some good lettering and doodling, I thought, on this, but yeah, there was some awkwardness with the structural elements. Here, I again kind of pulled back on the green in the actual structural areas, and I really liked that better, just kind of limiting that and sticking with just the pink and the orange and the lettering sections. I did some overlapping boxes. Again, I really wanted to keep things as simple as possible, so I was not overwhelmed with drawing spreads every week. So this one, I didn't even really use rulers, just kind of like, got a size and just drew it out and made it as simple as possible. So that turned out pretty good, I thought. And then here's what I did at the end of the month. This time, instead of boxing them in, I just kind of left the space for them, but separated out each of the days. And that turned out pretty well. And I think I skipped a line or something, so the spacing isn't quite right on this, but overall, the airiness of it I liked a lot better than having all the lines. And then I brought in the green here. You can see the days where I read on the following day if I missed a reading. So that's how the end of May turned out. And finally, we're into June. June was a really fun month. This is where it kind of all came together with, trying some more stamping. I've been practicing stamping in different elements in my planner. So this one, the stamping turned out way better. I wanted to do a bee theme. I love the idea of using hexagons, so I brought that in. I also, found the verse, of course, to match up with that. Brought in some washi tape even this month as part of the decor, and just kind of brought it all together. All of the mixed media elements I'd been trying out earlier in the year, and just try to make it all work together in this 1 month of my bullet journal faith planner. This was the cover page, and this was a really fun look. Love the black and the yellow with the gray. Again, I really wanted to focus in on that hexagon idea, so I did a hexagon pattern in a lot of these spreads. Brought in that same elements of the stamping and the pen and the washi tape, and then my little bee, and then use that yellow as kind of the pop throughout each of the pages. Still using the black tape, you can see it kind of helps unify the planner. For this page in particular, I decided to do a spiritual challenge that was like a verse reading challenge. So I found something on Pinterest, which is where I find all my Bible challenge type stuff, and grabbed this one that was be positive, but it didn't say be positive like this. It just said like be positive verses, and I thought that would be cute for the bee theme. I penciled them in this kind of like random pattern, and as I completed the days, what I would do is I would pin it in. So that's how I kept track of what was completed. As you can see, around here is where things fell off, and that is because I got COVID at the end of the month. So you're going to see there's going to be some missing spreads at the back of the month, and which kind of led me into not doing anything into July, and then I'm just really busy in August. So COVID kind of steamrolled me into this too busy situation. However, I like that I still have it here, and I can kind of see what happened and know, oh yeah, that was the week that I had COVID and all that good stuff. But I really liked the layout of this month, so I was really, I really tried to use it to its fullest, the best that I could. So this was the first spread that I laid out for the month, and I wanted again to keep that hexagon theme going in here. So I tried that out for the lettering. I stuck with one main color and black, which was this yellow tone, and then I also had a gray pen on hand, but I didn't really like it for the most part, the way I was trying to bring it in. It was just so light, and so I reserved that for very rare occasions. But it was fun to try and incorporate the lettering in this hexagonal shape. Sometimes it worked out well, sometimes it could have been better. But overall, I really liked this theme and how it turned out. When something isn't quite working, you can see I just always go back to the quadrant, and that's what I did here. This one felt very reminiscent of my year last year and how I used the planner with the 2 colors and black and the quadrant layout. This one was really good. There was, you know, a little bit of roughness in some of the coloring aspects of things, but I had fun with it and liked, again, the decor. And guess who went back to horizontal? This girl. So I tried it again. This time I wanted to see if I could just make it work, and I wanted it to be simple. You know, when I was setting it up, I didn't really want to work hard. So I said, let's try horizontal again. And actually, I feel like I did a fairly good job on this week using the horizontal and making fairly good lettering styles to work within that kind of constraint. So this is how this one turned out, and I just had a lot of fun with this, even though, again, it was challenging. Always challenging in the horizontal. And finally, we have June's, where I break off and, again, kind of lose track of doing things. I did set this one up to kind of do like that mid-sized box thing with a little bit of white space at the top and here in the corner, put in the decor. This one was starting out not too bad, but like I said, I got COVID this week, and so I didn't get a chance to finish it out. I did have an empty spread between this page and the back page, and I just ended up gluing it together because I just could not muster the strength to complete the lettering each day. So I just glued it together so that I would have my back page here, which is one of the best, I thought, of the monthly layouts, using this kind of hexagonal honeycomb theme for the month. This one I just thought was really creative and fun. A creative and fun way to track things on each day. So another kind of idea if you are doing some kind of bee-centered theme, this one was really fun and very convenient. I mean, I felt like it really worked. That completes the first half of the year in my Faith bullet journal / planner. Lots of learning, lots of fun, lots of creative ideas, bringing those in. I really enjoyed this first half of the year. I really do want to get back to it. Maybe September, October, I will be able to start up again and finish out the year. As you can see, I have the dividers in here. They all start off with just these empty, grid pages, and just creating something from nothing is very rewarding, although a little bit challenging when you're new to it. So this has been a really great experience. So yeah, I highly recommend it if it's something that you feel you're ready for. I wouldn't say jump in, if you've never faith planned at all, I wouldn't say jump into the style. I would say start with something more simplified. I definitely worked up to this amount of bullet journaling and faith planning. It can be a lot. So if you have the time, definitely try faith planning, but maybe start small. Start with something that is doable for you. Maybe it's just lettering a verse every day, or maybe it's just doing a daily reading, having a prayer list, little things, and then as you feel like you can maintain and grow with what you've started with, you build up to something quite more intense. So I just wanted to put that out there so you guys aren't like, whoa, it's a lot of work. I don't know how you do that. I did not start here. Definitely worked my way up, and anybody could do it. If you go back to when I first started faith planning on my channel, you can see how I started and how I built up to this, and hopefully that will help you if you want to see a progression. It also shows how I started with my lettering and where I am now. So again, just lots of tips as far as starting small and growing into a full-blown faith planner or bullet journal style faith planner. That's it, you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up down below, and maybe leave me a comment if you'd like to get in touch. Think about subscribing to my channel too if you haven't already, if you'd like to see more of my videos. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and we will see you next time. Bye!